Good evening and welcome to everyone who has joined me on this session of ESG on this platform of IIU. So we thank IIU for giving us this opportunity to talk about ESG. And ESG as such, what does it mean? It's the very word that stands for compliancy factors that really helps people to have a new form of business setup with policies and procedures in place which will lead to the development. And this is what the ESG is all about. The exponential form of ESG is that environmental social governance. This is what we are going to see today. And slowly it is coming up, it's coming in the trend as such, but nobody is taking it more with a focus, or nobody is taking it so seriously, such that because they really didn't want to know exactly what is this ESG is about and how is it going to really do good, and what all things that we can benefit as stakeholders of the society, how we can benefit from it. This is what people would like to know. So on that note, when I had a talk with Dr. Virginia said that let's go in for the session on the IIU platform so that we'll create an awareness so that people will start looking into it, maybe they'll start working on it. And this environmental social governance is a key factor in investment decisions, with many investors prioritizing companies that demonstrate strong ESG performance that will really contribute to the happiness index of the society and also of the company. So in that case, so what does it really cater to? Which are the areas, which are the disciplines that it really caters to? Is that these factors are being managed or under the header of risk management systems that is being integrated into the risk management frameworks to identify potential risks and the opportunities to mitigate the negative impact on businesses and also the stakeholders involved. That's the actual benefit of it. So if you want me to repeat it again, to be precise, these risk management these ESG factors work on risk management disciplines which are being integrated into the risk management frameworks which will help us to identify the potential risks and the opportunities which are there to mitigate the negative impacts which will impact on the business or even the stakeholders even. So in that case, this framework, how does it work? It is a regulatory framework as we have in our education system. CBSE is one regulatory framework, ICSE is one regulatory framework. So like that, these are regulatory frameworks where governments and the regulatory bodies are developing now in the frameworks and the guidelines as ESG reporting and disclosure to increase transparency and accountability of each and every stakeholder, of each and every individual who is involved in this process or even the company. So in that case, is it actually the stakeholder engagement? Yes, it is actually the stakeholders engagement, including who are the stakeholders? Customers, employees, communities that are demanding greater transparency and accountability from the company, from the institution on ESG issues. That is environmental social governance, that compliance issues. When we are working in congenial atmosphere, when we are forming an ecosystem, you can understand how important it is to work on this ESG factor. So, is it a kind of innovation which is coming up, which is going to leave many opportunities, which is going to open more opportunities? Yes. ESG considerations are driving innovations in creating new opportunities for businesses, even job market, and also performance indicators such as developing sustainable products and services to the society, such that from now we have a very long-term vision and plan of down the lane for maybe a decade or even more than a decade. So in that case, the long-term value creation is the basic objective of this ESG factor. And this is long-term value creation is being recognized as the ESG factor, and it is very essential for than any other short-term goals, because as we know, as we are in the companies, or we are working in a professional organization or in a professional ecosystem, this is very, very important when we have a long-term vision and mission to achieve that, how to work in compliance with this environmental social governance, so that we are ready to risk any kind of mitigate any kind of risk that are being involved in it, and we will have innovative guidelines and also remedial measures and recommendations in place, such that everybody will be in compliance with that, and also everybody will work in a more congenial atmosphere. So in that case, how does it get aligned to the global goals alignment? So the ESG factor, the framework that we are working, is very closely aligned to the global goals, such as United Nations. In fact, it has started from there, and United Nations Sustainable Developmental Goals, and the companies are increasingly incorporating these goals into strategies, such that they have a very long-term vision and for a very sustainable existence in the market, in job market, or also in the industry. So how does it really help these companies or even the stakeholders is that it creates a very brand value and also reputation for the company. Strong ESG performance can enhance a company's reputation and brand value, while the poor performance can lead to a reputation damage as well. So in that case, what is actually required is that access to the capital. So the companies with strong ESG performance may have a better access to the capital, as investors increasingly prioritizing sustainable and responsible investments these days. So in that case, how will the change happen? Definitely it cannot happen overnight. It cannot jeopardize the present situation. It will be a systematic change. So this ESG incorporation or integration into the system will drive systems change in business, policy and development, promoting a more sustainable and equitable future. So with prioritizing these ESG factors into the business, and with the policies and development strategic guidelines, we can create a long-term value-driven innovation systems that can contribute to a sustainable future. So when it comes to the framework, we are talking about ESG governance. As we have understood, it's a framework, it's a practice that is going to guide an organization management. And what could be the key components of this ESG governance? That's what we are going to see. What is ESG? What are the key components of this framework? How to integrate it into the existing system without jeopardizing the present as such, and how will we benefit, and how is it going to contribute to the society? So the key components could actually be a board oversight, a board of directors of the governing body, who are the main ESG ambassadors of the company, will provide strategic guidance and oversight for all the environmental social governance which are existing in that particular institution or the company or the industry. So in that case, what could be the next one? If we have the board oversight, when we have the board vision, the unified vision of the board, then comes the ESG strategy, which should be developed and which will be in place. The organization will develop a very clear ESG strategy that will align with the business and objectives and the stakeholders' expectations without compromising on these things. So, as we told before, it is basically a risk management system. The organization identifies, assesses, and manages the ESG related risks and opportunities in terms of not only safety, security, in terms of not only the happiness index, but also the investment part of it, whether the investor or the person who has invested the money into the society, into the industry is safe. So these things really contribute a lot for everybody's happiness and for everybody's safety. So in that case, even the stakeholders, the organization will engage the stakeholders to understand the expectations and the concerns which are related to the ESG issues, correspondingly with the continuous consistent ESG audits and the reporting and the framework and the feedback and the recommendations which are given in a more laid format and the framework and the skeletal which will help the organization to move ahead. So the reporting and the transparency part of it is going to be very clear. The organization reports on its performance of the ESG performance, progress towards the ESG goals to the local authority who is concerned with that, whom they are working with, or even to the stakeholders, direct B2B, when it is so that the direct stakeholders B2C, or even other ways, any higher authority or any global or governmental organization which is being involved in it. So the reporting and the transparency is being maintained such that everybody knows exactly what is happening and how is it, how the company is moving, how the company is getting or becoming more and more sustainable. So the benefits of this ESG governance is that improved risk management systems that help the organization to identify and manage the risks, ESG related risks and opportunities, with enhanced reputation and branding, with effective ESG governance that will help the organization to build its trust, basically the trust with the stakeholders, as it's going to be very transparent and which will lead to the better informed decision making in the board as such. And the governance will provide a framework with informed decision making that will take in consideration with the ESG factors. With the increased transparency, this governance will promote this accountability and transparency, which can lead to any kind of sustainable situation that is being expected. So when it is so, the ESG governance and the framework and standards, or how from where we have taken, is that Global Reporting Initiative. GRI, that is Global Reporting Initiative, is an index which provides widely the framework for the ESG reporting. Or otherwise, it could be Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, SASB. Very easy to remember, SASB. A set of specific standards for the ESG reporting is already available that people can make use of it. Or otherwise, we can have a task force, in-house task force with who will be able to like TCFD, that is Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. So this framework is also reporting on climate-related risks and opportunities. And last but not the least, European Union Non-Financial Reporting Directives, that is EUNFRD. That is European Union Non-Financial Reporting Directive. It's a European Union directive that requires large companies to report on ESG issues. So we can have any kind of help from these organizations. One more time, if you want me to repeat, I can repeat. That is GRI, that is Global Reporting Initiative. They provide the framework for ESG reporting. Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, SASB. They also have industry specific, that is for education, for healthcare, for hospitality. So industry specific standards for ESG reporting, and Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, that is TCFD, also provide a framework for reporting on the climate-related risks and opportunities. And also European Union Non-Financial Reporting Directives also has the framework which helps the companies to report on the ESG issues. So this is what the whole thing ESG is all about. So now to move further, to go in detail exactly, allow me to share my screen, for which I would like to present more or less like on ESG. And here we are. Yes. I think my screen is visible now. I'll go on to the slideshow mode. So this is what we have seen so far. And yeah. So this is whole, that's the introduction about ESG and why is it important. Today in this session, what we're going to see, what is ESG? How will we constitute this ESG framework into our system? And why is it important? How does it help the environment? And how does it help our society? And also this is what we are going to see. So if you actually see the environmental social governance, what all things it deals with. When it comes to the environmental factors, it is with the climatic change and GHG emissions, pollution, water security, deforestation, and all these factors which comes under environmental risks. When it comes to the social risks, basically the working conditions, in other words, it is HR, employee relations, diversity and inclusion, health and safety, all put together, it relates to the happiness index. When it comes to the governance part of it, exactly, with donations and political lobbying, executive risks and structure, politicians, it means policies and standards, and also how we can get rid of bribery and corruption. All these comes under the ESG risks that are being handled with. So in today's world, basically, businesses are expected to do more than deliver profits. So there are increasingly demands to act responsibly and contribute positively to the society and the environment. So how do we do that? Environmental social governance principles are at heart of the shift, providing a framework for companies to operate sustainably while building trust with all these stakeholders. So ESG is just not a moral imperative. It is, I believe, a business necessity. So the customers increasingly prefer companies that align with their values. Investors often prioritize organizations with strong ESG credentials, and the regulatory bodies are demanding greater transparency and commitment with the vision and the mission and the future plans, strategic plans which are involved. What more the businesses that embrace ESG often see is that enhanced brand loyalty, reduced risks, and access to new opportunities. So this ESG goes a long way to provide straightforward introduction to ESG, covering how to get onto the fundamental rights that can contribute towards sustainable business growth. And also we are going to see how any organization, even the smallest, can start implementing the ESG principles. And drawing on the ISO factor, the ESG implementation principles, it outlines the practical steps for identifying the material, that is ESG issues. First is the diagnostic system. With the diagnostic approach, we'll be able to identify the risks that are being involved in it. Then come the remedials and the recommendations as integrating sustainability into the strategy, setting up measurable goals, and reporting progress transparently. So whether you're going to start on your ESG journey or looking to refine your approach, I'm confident that you will find that this actionable guidance will help you to make meaningful progress. So by prioritizing ESG into your business, you can create value, build resilience, and contribute to a more sustainable and positive future for all. So let's go on to the success of the ESG roadmap. That is, there was a time when sustainability strategies were considered a nice to have. It's worth having that way. So what implementing for organizations with time and resource, but not particularly higher up with the priority list. So those days are long and gone. Now, it's not only a robust sustainability strategy increasingly centralized to the long-term business success, but the very concept of sustainability has evolved to encompass for more than just environmental responsibilities, as we are talking about resilience and also equitable and profit sharing or equitable society, sustainable future that's for everyone. So today the stakeholders, including the investors and the regulators, are looking beyond just to impact organizations having on the environment. They are increasingly looking at the moral obligations and their impact on the society as the whole to ensure transparency and accountability with the governance factor, with informed decision-making processes and are coming under the microscope. In other words, the organizations are being evaluated on their approach to the series of environmental, social, and governance indicators. So, when you have heard about this and how to get this encompasses to you, is that how refined and measured, and why is it important to get it right always? All these things that we are going to see into the ESG roadmap. So, What is this ESG that we have understood so far? ESG aims to address key sustainability challenges facing the world by providing a model to help organizations implement performance improvement. So this includes the reporting on activities and products and services, and also supporting sustainable development, social justice, and good governance. So detail, ESG stands for Environmental Social Governance. It is a framework that is used to evaluate an organization's performance on various sustainability and social responsibility issues. So on environmental factors, it could be climate change, natural resources, biodiversity, etc. So when it is climate change, as we all know, greenhouse gas emissions, carbon footprint, and climatic change mitigation strategies, with the proper use of the natural sources which are available, that is water management, resource depletion, and conservation efforts, with biodiversity, protection of the present ecosystem with the species and habitats. So when it comes to the social, it's about the labor practices, having an enhanced working culture, the culture that we are developing, with the working conditions, with the employee rights, satisfying all employee rights and the labor standards, with the human rights, with the respect for the human rights, including those of indigenous communities and vulnerable groups, and with the community engagement, with the relationship with the local communities, philanthropy, and the social investments. With this, the whole governance comes under the three different factors of the board composition, where diversity, independence, and expertise are with the board of directors. With the execution compensation, there is fairness, transparency, and alignment with the company's vision and mission, and the performance strategic vision and the performance indicators are being well laid, with consistent and continuous auditing and internal controls which are so effective for the risk management systems. So this is all about, when we talk about environment, this is all about how a business can minimize the impact on the environment, including sustainable resource with the use of energy efficiencies, protection of the environment, climate mitigation and adaptation, prevention of pollution and waste management, and also biodiversity and the restoration of the natural habitats. So when we talk about the social, we're talking about the workplace culture and how a business can impact the wider society. That means the business itself and also across all the crossover supply chains. So it can include human rights and labor practices, community relations and engagement, privacy and data protection, health, well-being and safety, supply chain management with equity, diversity and inclusivity, that is EDI. Other human capital and social justice issues may also be well established, like the Pride Month, or otherwise emerge as stakeholders' pressure to take prompt and critical position on live issues. So when it comes to the governance aspect, the main thing, that is when we talk about a story, there's always a top layer, that's an introduction. The second is the spice part of it, and the third is the conclusion. So the concluding part ends up with the governance part of it. It refers to the process of the ESG decision making that covers to the reporting, ethics, and transparency. That could even the governance will include E&S categories as well. Say, for example, corporate board composition and structure, strategic sustainability oversight and compliance, executive compensation, anti-corruption, responsible political involvement, fair competition in the society or in the market, promoting social responsibility in the value chain, respect for property rights, and interrelationship with the communities and the societies. So, why do organizations need ESG? Why do we need that? Even if you don't have a strategy in name, you might be able to think of activities that will fit under the ESG umbrella. You might be doing these things because they can come and help you in a more efficient to save money or become more resilient. Or you might be simply doing them because you think that you're doing the right thing. So these are all valid and powerful motivations, but the benefit of taking ESG action could be even greater than what you think. A robust ESG strategy doesn't give you the opportunity to just showcase your organization as the brand, as anyone is committed being environmentally or socially responsible. It can also come up with significant business benefits now and also for the future. Why? Because as Bloomberg Intelligence Survey has mentioned, 85% of the investors report ESG leads to better returns and more resilient portfolios. So here are some advantages of taking ESG action is that, as we have seen, McKinsey and study is that 28% of the cumulative growth over the past 5 years for the products making ESG claims. And this is compared to just 20% of the product that had made no claims. So there's the other side of it, it attracts funding. According to Bloomberg Intelligence Survey, 85% of the investors report that ESG leads to better returns and more resilient portfolios. 90% of the same investors said that ESG could drive better returns over the next 12 months. This indicates that investors are drawing a clear line between the ESG policies and the financial returns. The organizations are able to demonstrate that ESG credentials, which will be the strongest position for investment and growth. So it's basically win business with improving the perception of your brand. Being able to clearly demonstrate your ESG credentials, a company can help the company to win business. And large organizations are facing demanding mandatory reporting targets, which are often include as activities of supply chain partners, such as greenhouse gas emissions and categories as scope. So even if you're not required to report, being able to evidence ESG activities will put you in a good stead with partners. That too, for consumer-facing brands, that is evident that products with ESG claims perform better than those that are not. So, again, a joint McKinsey study shows that the products making ESG claims are averaged 28% of the cumulative growth over the past 5 years. So this is compared to 20% of the products that made no claims. So this reflects a growing consumer demand for ethical, sustainable products and services that was found in reports despite cost living pressures. So to move ahead, so what it can, in other words, how it can help is that it can attract and retain talent. There is always a growing body of evidence that shows that strong ESG and policies performance help to attract and retain the best talent. According to PW research, these 3/4 of job seekers feel that overall societal impact is important when choosing an employer. Over 2/3 of the think that environmental policies and practices and overall governance policies are very important. When it comes to choosing whether to stay with an employer, or over 70% feel that overall societal impact is very important considering when it comes to taking decisions on these factors. So 66% say that the overall governance policies and the environmental policies and practices are very important by giving clear opportunities on offer, taking action and demonstrating the better results is very essential. But for ESG related claims to have a value, they need to be backed up with real demonstrable action. Failures to do so can open up potential for greenwashing accusations, posing reputational risks and eroding trust. So how can organizations implement ESG principles and develop an ESG culture? Maybe you might be wondering how to actually create and implement a new concept called ESG strategy. There isn't one size fits all approach to ESG priorities, goals, and which will vary from organization to organization, industry to industry. So definitely you will agree with that, I think, because however, these general implementation principles that can help you to get where you want to go for every organization. And this begins with one often overlooked component that's called as culture. This is very important, without which we are not going to survive in the society. Without bringing your employees and partners along on this journey, ESG's initiative will only go so far. So here is a checklist for developing a strong ESG culture within your organization. First step is to commit to ESG values. Define ESG values and principles for your company. Align it with your business vision and values. Make a commitment to upholding environmental sustainability, social responsibility with strong governance practices. So you need to have this framework or the skeletal being done as a primitive requisite. So this commitment should be communicated very clearly to all the employees all stakeholders and all customers. Number 2, when it is set, assess the current practices. Have a diagnostic test done, evaluation done. Assess it and take steps to assess where your organization currently stands when it relates to ESG. As far as possible, look to evaluate your environmental footprint or the energy use, waste management, or the societal impact, the employees' well-being, happiness index, and the community involvement, the governance structure, transparency with ethical decision making, how democratically you're analyzing to go on to decision making, or otherwise you're following the hierarchy procedure. So assess your current procedures very clearly. Third is to set ESG goals. Set measurable ESG goals for your business plan on your assessment. This could range from reducing the carbon emission, improving diversity in hiring and ensuring fair wages, or enhancing transparency in financial reporting. By setting up specific measurable goals, you can develop a roadmap for improvement that gives the employees something to work towards. Now, when you have set your goals, and remember the goals are set by the people. It's set by the people, for the people, of the people, so they have their accountability and responsibility for it. In that case, engage the employees and the stakeholders, provide ESG training to foster an open dialogue about the company's ESG goals. Your employees will be the central on how a change of culture within the business can be accelerated. You can create employee-driven initiatives or green teams and offer incentives for sustainable behaviors and encourage volunteerism, such that they are already involved in this process of change. When they're already involved in this process of change, integrate ESG into decision making. Make ESG consideration a part of your daily business operation, whether it is in suppliers selection or product development or community partnership, or ensure that ESG values are being integrated into the decision-making processes. Then, last but not the least, anything which doesn't have a measure is going to be futile. So you monitor consistently, report and improve, and regular monitoring will help you to move on to the progress towards the ESG goals, and also will be very quick in providing the remedials in case of any problem which is being analyzed or identified. So this might involve tracking metrics like energy consumption, waste reduction, employee satisfaction, and governance improvements. So transparent reporting of your progress, even if you're a small business, builds a trust with the customers, not only with the customers, the partners and other stakeholders who will be might be your staff, or otherwise in case of anybody who is involved in it. So continuous monitoring will ensure you stay on the track, while regular reporting holds you accountable and also create a business opportunities for everyone. So the typical ESG implementation challenges could be how to overcome them. For small organizations, especially in particular, there is often a concern that is making a progress on ESG will be too time consuming and resource intensive. While ESG does require a degree of commitment, even small actions will make a big difference. So you'll be surprised how many can easily integrate into your daily, what all things that you can operate, you can implement it in your daily day-to-day operations. What could be, in the sense like when it is so, then exactly what other challenges which could be that limited resources. Remember, you don't have to do all at once. Focus on the initiatives that offer quick wins, such as reducing energy usage, conducting review of your suppliers, etc. And these efforts can deliver immediate benefits while building momentum for larger products. Perceived complexity of ESG reporting. Again, start with the areas that can deliver most immediate impact so that you can start feeling the change that is happening. So begin with identifying a few key metrics that align with your business goals, such as energy consumption, employee satisfaction, or even supply chain transparency. While using simplified tools and templates for ESG reporting, many can use the starter kits that are available online, and more advice can be found or sought with via any local business hubs. As you grow more confident, you can expand your reporting to cover additional areas relating to the vision and mission for your strategic plan. So balancing day-to-day activities with the change, with the business priorities. Think about ESG as an investment, not a cost, and align ESG initiatives with the existing priorities. For example, energy efficiency projects can reduce costs while contributing to the sustainability goals. And increasing diversity can enhance employee engagement and productivity. So these both represent actions that can support the day-to-day running of the businesses and contribute to the ESG responsibilities. Then how these standards can support your ESG journey. So implementing, reporting, and measuring on ESG might still feel like a daunting task, but it doesn't need to be. Standards can help you get started. From where do we get it? ISO ESG implementation principles. Follow that, you're already there. For organizations looking to get started with ESG standards, the ISO ESG implementation principles are a great place to start. So these principles were developed as a part of international collaborative effort to ensure consistency and reliability across global ESG ecosystem. They provide a foundation for embedding ESG principles in your organization, working culture, and cover all aspects of ESG, helping to address diverse sustainability objectives. Crucially, they align with the reporting frameworks and standards. So this helps harmonization and compliance and enhances reporting transparency for investors, regulators, and supply chain partners and consumers. So the straightforward guidance provided in this document is designed to support the smooth implementation of ESG. This is crucial, however, for all the SMEs who may lack the resources and expertise to navigate the complex ESG integration processes on their own. These are freely available, allowing the organization to implement effective ESG practices without incurring costs. Once you have successfully integrated the general ISO ESG implementation principle, you may also wish to explore those standards which provide further guidance on tackling specific ESG issues. So these ESG related standards, this is what we are going to see. What are they about? How do we get an idea about it, and what does it comply on? The standards will help you to meet the ESG reporting requirements by citing internationally recognized consensus-based and, in some cases, auditable procedures. They can also help to build resilience for a diverse range of ESG risks while enhancing overall organizational performance. So, very simple. Some of the key standards that will include environmental. When it talks about environmental, BSEN ISO 14001 is a standard that we can use for environmental management system. So the requirements with the guidance for use, it provides a framework to help you to identify, control your activities, products and services affect and impact the environment, and it helps to put robust procedures in place to conserve your resource and save money. So the second one for the same environmental, that BSEN ISO 1400641, that's for greenhouse gases emission, part 1, with the specification and guidance as organization level for quantification and reporting of greenhouse gas emissions and removals. So the first part of it with the multi-series of Gs. So when it comes to the social standards, that is BSEN ISO 26000, with the guidance on social responsibility, it provides guidance on underlying principles of the social responsibility. So when it comes to the again under the category of social, human resource management with diversity and inclusion, ISO IIU-3014 is a standard that aims to help organizations create more diverse and inclusive work environment and equal opportunities for individuals from all backgrounds. So overall, with E and S put together, it sums it up as the governance. When it comes to that, BS ISO 37000. Well, it helps for the governance of all organizations with the guidance. It provides authoritative, comprehensive guidance on what good governance look like and why does it matter. So when it comes to the anti-bribery risk management systems, BS ISO 37001, that requirements with the guidance for use help the organizations prevent, detect, address bribery issues regardless of its source. So when we talk about these standards, what are these? Who makes these standards? Why do we need to follow somebody's standard? Standards are the best thought as blueprints for excellence. Somebody has used it effectively, it has helped them, and we are following it. I think that's what we are doing in science, that's what we are doing in social science, that's what we are doing in psychology. Having very clearly past experiences, past references, we are trying to follow them. Okay, this has helped that person, why not we use it? That's what it's all about. So they aren't just arbitrary guidances. These are documents that represent distilled wisdom of what good looks like, with experiences, with affirmations, with testimonies. When implemented, they serve as robust rules and clear guidelines and precise definitions that business can lean on to ensure operational excellence. So the standards cover a wide range of subjects. There can be extremely specific as well, such as for a particular product or service, that can be more general as management practices even. So the point of a standard is to provide a reliable basis of people to share some expectations about the product or service and the processes that should underpin its manufacture or its delivery. To move on, next steps, how to formulate an ESG audit checklist. Haven't convinced, okay, if I'm going to go in for ESG, what should I do? What should I follow? Where are the guidelines? What all things I should think? So what all things could be included in your ESG audit checklist? How often do we need to conduct these audits? How to generate and validate your reports? Who will endorse the validated report? And how an organization can comply with the environmental social governance. So the ESG audit looks something like this. Basically, it comes under a different framework as such, EMS, that is Environmental Management System. So these are the questions that you need to ask yourself and create a checklist. Does your organization have a documented EMS, that is an Environmental Management System framework, or environmental policies documented and accessible to every stakeholder so they know exactly what is good, what is to be done, and what is not to be done. So the policies are the key things that ought to be in place. If you don't have, you need to have it. So objectives and targets. Are environmental objectives and targets very clearly defined to all the stakeholders so they know that exactly? So this year for the 2005, what is our company's, our institution's environmental target and how objective and how we are going to achieve it? If at all monitoring has been done, where are we exactly and how much percentage do we need to get more, or is there a plan to achieve these objectives and targets? So the implementation operation are responsibilities and authorities for EMS, that is Environmental Management System, assigned to the team people whom you are working with. Is there a documented procedure for this EMS implementation? Do we have it done? So in that case, we know exactly the clear roadmap of exactly who is going to do it. If at all it has been done, if it has been something has been identified, we know who is the person who is responsible. So this accounts to this count on the accountability of each stakeholder who is involved. So the monitoring and review. Are environmental performance indicators tracked regularly in terms of audits? and or EMS reviews are conducted periodically to assess the performance, how often the feedback is being given, how often the remedials are being suggested, how often these recommendations are being the inferences or the interventions are being suggested, how often it is getting implemented. So with the energy management, this is for environmental management system. Now, when it comes to the energy management system, do we have energy policy? Is there is an energy policy in place that outlines the goals and strategies? Is there is an energy policy communicated to all the employees? Do we have energy audits? Are the regular energy audits which are being conducted, or the audit findings are being documented and addressed with the energy efficiency measures? Or energy efficiency projects identified and implemented with maybe simple LED lighting or upgrades or energy efficient systems and equipments being in place, if there is a plan for continuous improvement in terms of energy use. So when it comes to the environmental criteria, you can think about renewable energy. There is a strategy to increase the use of renewable energy resource. That is recycle, renew, reuse. As simple as that. Do we have a strategy? Do we have a policy? Do we have a procedure? Please document it. Are renewable energy installations in place in terms of simple example, solar panels even? Okay. Then water management system, do we have a water conservation policy? Is there a water conservation policy in place? Or water conservation goals which are being set and communicated? Water usage tracking is being monitored. If there is a water usage data being collected and monitored regularly? Or the benchmarks being established for water usage reduction? Or are we following water efficiency products or water saving technologies and practices being implemented, or water reuse and recycling initiatives are being taken? So, for example, rainwater harvesting, even that can be documented. So, the water management and the waste policy, is there a waste management policy? Is there a waste reduction targets being defined? Water segregation practices being implemented? And are there bins for different types of waste, that is recyclables provided, recycling programs or recycling programs being in place and effective? Is there a percentage of waste diverted into landfill being tracked? So when it is so, the environmental criteria can also infer to pollution and emissions. Emission inventory, is there a comprehensive inventory of emission resources or emission data tracked and reported regularly? Pollution control measures being in place, or pollution control technologies and practices being implemented, or the procedures for managing accidental releases? GHG reduction strategies, that's a strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or specific GHG reduction projects and timelines being defined. With the biodiversity and land use, biodiversity assessment, diversity impacts assessed for all operations, our baseline biodiversity data being collected, with the habitat protection or measures being in place with the local habitat and species, or restoration projects being undertaken in degraded areas, and sustainable land use, in the land use planning and aligned with sustainability principles or initiatives being minimize land degradation. So when it comes to the environmental criteria, 1.7 is the key thing which, as we talk about governance, exactly, complaints and reporting. Regulatory complaints or restoration projects undertaken by the degraded areas. Is there a process to ensure compliance with environmental regulations, or complaincy records being maintained and accessible? Environmental reporting or environmental performance reports published regularly, or stakeholders informed with environmental performance. So when we do with this checklist, with the audit checklist, we will have an answer for exactly the environmental issues that are being addressed. So when it comes to the S now, that is the social criteria, 2.1. 2 is social, and so 2.1 is the labor practices, employment policy. There is a clear employment policy that ensures fair labor practices, or employment contracts and compliant with labor laws. Working conditions safe and healthy, or working hours and conditions monitored for complaints, or employee rights and benefits being protected and communicated. Is there a grievance mechanism which is being there in place for the employees and also for the employers? And secondly, 2.2, health and safety policy. Is there a health and safety policy in place, or health and safety responsibilities being assigned to different stakeholders who are being involved? And everyone as such. As I tell you, we are the standards in the framework is of the people, by the people, and for the people. So everyone has to be involved in it with a more democratic point of view. So when it comes to the risk assessments or regular health and safety risk assessment being conducted, are identified risk documented and mitigated with the incident reporting. Any kind of incident which is being reported, or there is a system for reporting and investigating incidents, not only accidents, and incident data being analyzed to prevent a reoccurrence. So do we have a risk management system in place? So when it is so, that is then 2.3 is diversity and inclusion. With the diversity policy, is there is a diversity and inclusion policy in place, or diversity goals are set and communicated and being tracked. With the training and awareness, and our employees trained on diversity and inclusion, other programs to raise awareness about diversity issues, and so that everyone will learn to work and live in harmony. So 2.4, the community engagement, community policy, is there is a policy for engaging with the local communities, or community engagement goals defined, impact assessment or community impacts assessed and documented, or mitigation measures implemented for negative impacts. So the community programs or community development and support programs are in place. Is there is a process to track and report community engagement outcomes. So when it comes to social criteria, last but not the least, the two human rights. The human rights, do we have the human rights policies in place? Is there a human rights policy? The policy aligned to the international human rights standards with the supply chain and due diligence. So the human risks assessed in supply chain, or suppliers required to adhere human rights and standards with monitoring and reporting, or human rights impact monitored and reported, as there is a process for addressing human rights violation. So how do we get on there with the training and development? With our training, or do we have the training and development programs available for all employees? The training needs to be assessed regularly, and our career development opportunities being provided in terms of promotion or getting on there. Is there a process for tracking and evaluating training awareness in terms of appraisals and rewards, etc., 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 not only for, and also for helping people who are not being there. So, with that, we have come to the end of the session. When we talk about the key takeaways of today, the environmental social governance aim to address the key sustainability challenges facing the world by helping the organizations implement and report on the activities supporting sustainable development with social justice and good governance. More than just being the right thing to do, ESG help organizations secure funding, win new businesses, and better attract and retain the best talent with trust. So it seemed daunting to get started, but there are simple steps, and every single step is a big leap to fly high to get yourself established with principles that can help you embed with ESG within your organization. By providing distilled wisdom of what good looks like, these standards which have been quintessentially absorbed from what has happened in the past, that has really helped, and which is testimonied with references. These standards will help you with address diverse sustainability objectives and ESG goals. In conclusion, the main rationale of the session is to help organizations improve the quality and safety of the procedures, products, services, and systems through voluntary consensus and driven standards. So as we know, a standard is agreed way of doing things with a collective framework that is created by the experts and consolidated by supporting organization. So the subjects range from occupational health to net zero, as we have the global community of 12,500 experts representing industry and consumers and organizations, etc., etc., when it comes to the UN. So we are constantly striving to support organizations in offering equal opportunities in the workplace and standards as powerful tools for achieving this. So your organization can become more successful, and your employees every day lives an easier and safe and healthier, and you can have your happiness index for your organization and for your country as well. End of the day, we all there. So the strong ESG action is increasingly essential to any organization's success. By developing a robust culture of ESG in your business, you will be more stronger and sustainable. So on that note, we thank IIU for creating this platform and sharing our knowledge with you all. And our sincere thanks to Dr. Piyush Pandit. And as we all know, like IIU has been the world's first international internship university, which has been always inspiring, inventing, and igniting young minds. So this is one way of igniting the young minds as such. So we are so happy. I'm so happy to be here on this platform sharing this awareness about the ESG, which is going to be the actual rule of the world. So let it come and follow whenever it is coming in, but let us start creating the basis, the foundation which is actually required. Let's all try to be there, which is almost being the way of the art. So better late than never. So a thought today we have sown this thought of ESG, as it is said. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. So it's a slow process. Every single step is a big leap to fly high. So we have sown this thought. Let's put forth an action. Let it come as a habit. Let us become your character, your destiny, your identity, such that we all will be able to move forward in the same direction with a unified vision of getting on there with the ESG as it is mentioned. So the ESG is there. So definitely, I think we all will be there, definitely. Thank you. Thanks, IIU and Dr. Virginia and Dr. Piyush Pandit for giving this wonderful platform, for sharing our knowledge about ESG and why is it required. Thank you. Until we meet again, it's signing off. Srividhya signing off. Thank you.